It was like. Oh, that's the first.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's everybody that's been in that seat. That's done.
Yeah, then.
And a lot of happiness. No, so.
I explained Okay, it is February 18th, 5:45 PM, and I'm going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Barker, Cost, Chute, Hauser, and Marmy. First item, the unappropriated balance is at $365,731, and the balance of the budget stabilization fund is at $698,128. First item on our agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $6,000.
Good evening. This is in reference to our grant program that won't cost the city any money, and we've been purchasing these transit passes for our offenders since 2016. We didn't put it in this year's budget because we were trying to watch the budget to see if we might need the 6,000 for something else. Looks like we don't, so we're gonna go ahead and make the purchase if you approve it.
Second. Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, send us on full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to apply for financial support from the state of Ohio 2025 Urban Forestry Grant.
This is a new grant that the Division of Parks would like to pursue, and we will be reimbursed if we're successful. 100% of our costs for tree planting is the plan. Right now, they're trying to decide which areas.
Motion. Second. Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or discussion? Do we go through the, I think isn't it soil and water conservation that does things with trees as well? And they sell trees and do all that?
Well, they may, I'm not aware of that. We're going to get an estimate for the grant application, and from what I understand, Chance is looking at getting an estimate from Albans. But if we are successful, we have to open it up to, for, fair competition.
Right.
For the contract. And right now, we're in the planning stages, but we can have the vendor plant the trees as well, which would probably be the best route to go, simply because the Division of Parks, they're fairly stretched with all their other responsibilities, and I think it would come out better.
But doesn't soil and water conservation, aren't they an extension of the government in order to provide us a guidance and a plan for forestry?
Well, they may be, but according to this grant, we have to follow certain guidelines as to what types of trees are going to be planted.
Okay.
We're not obligated to go through soil and water. For the grant.
But it's specific in the fact of like, there's already a plan for a forestry to improvement to have additional trees
Yes.
in the type.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any additional questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, send us on the full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $11,026.94.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We applied for, what was the remainder on a BWC grant? We're looking to pick up some miscellaneous equipment for some of the new fire apparatus. That's just arrived and subsequently coming in. We're fortunate enough to be awarded that amount. If somebody's asking for that amount back, so we can make the purchases.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, send us on full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, chief. And final item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $1,000.
And this appropriation is for the PEP grant, which is through Bureau of Workers' Compensation. And it will be used to purchase signage for the Division of Streets.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, send us on full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same side. And that motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And with that, this finance committee meeting stands adjourned. Next up is safety.
I'd like to call the safety committee meeting to order. Present are members, myself, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Cost, Ms. Blind, Mr. Hauser, and Mr. Rath. Tonight we have two pieces of legislation in front of us. The first is resolution number 25-10. That is a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Safety for the city of Newark, Ohio to release the lien previously placed against the property located at and known as 900 Jones Avenue, Newark, Ohio. Parcel number 054-192-078-00.000 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution to release property maintenance liens on a piece of property. It's one of those situations where the property had sold its share of sale by the time the lien was placed.
And it has the emergency clause on it, and the reason for that is.
Well, typically we do that in these circumstances because it delays the sale of the property, and the people that are buying the property are not the ones who created the problem to begin with.
I have a motion from Mr. Rath.
Second.
Second from Mr. Hauser.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Hauser.
With are the issues that are still at that property, do they still exist now as the violations, for the remedy at this point, or not, I guess?
I can't answer that.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Mr. Barker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our third one of these, I remember it.
We've, well, this is the second property maintenance. We had a couple with water.
With water, yeah, so I know water is going to have a process to avoid this again. Is it gonna be mirrored for property maintenance to avoid this same?
Well, I don't know if it's avoidable. I mean, that we go over there, or Joe goes over this with a fine tooth comb. It's just a matter of timing that we don't always know when a property's going up for share of sale. So by the time that we go through the process of placing the lanes, they're working over here in another lane to do a sale. So it's,
The sheriff says public record, so it would. Right,
I suppose we could, yes.
my thing is just that two in water now, this. We're essentially could have been paid on the closing.
Well, they are supposed to disclose that at the
Right.
time of closing. However, that doesn't always happen, obviously.
So I guess my thing is,
how can we avoid this in the future for property maintenance now? We're already working on water, just be partners with them to say, figure out how they're avoiding it and mirror that on the property maintenance.
Yeah, we can do that. Like I said, we do our due diligence on these things. It's not, we just don't create a document without doing any research on it.
Yeah.
And I would say based on the number of liens that we place, several $100,000 a year that, having a couple is probably a pretty good batting average.
It is, but it's also could have been revenue for something else. So I just see it as, if we can fix this, I'd like to see us fix it.
Any other questions from the committee or the audience? Mr. Marvin?
Okay, so. This is, we place the lien after the sale.
Yeah, the timeline is spelled out in the resolution. As far as the dates that everything occurred, so. And without looking at it here, without being able to give you the specific dates, without reading the whole thing, basically what happens is. By the time that the document got filed with the auditors or the treasurer's office, or when you filed with it there, it had already gone through sheriff's sales. So they had granted foreclosure.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the audience? Committee? All right, I have a motion for Mr. Rath and Mr. Hauser. All those in favor of sending this on to full council vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next piece of legislation is 2506. It is an ordinance amending Part 8, Title 2, Business Regulations of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Newark, Ohio, with marketing cartridge-based electronic nicotine delivery systems, ends, products, and other ends products that have not obtained pre-market authorization. Mr. Barker, I think you're going to speak for this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this legislation, and I'm gonna ask that, I thought you had the law director up here with me to clarify some things, as she and I have been working on this together. This was recently passed last year in the city of Heath. And it goes after stores such as vape stores who are selling non-FDA approved product to the public. These are items that are in the little vape boxes, things like that. This though, and I'd ask the law director to correct me if I'm wrong, but this now is in a case of the Supreme Court. The state legislature has the ability to also fix this. But when Keith passed it, I was made aware that 3 of their facilities closed in Heath because they didn't want to get FDA approved. And at least 2 that I know of have moved into Newark already, 1 across from an elementary school. This legislation the law directors put together is trigger legislation. So if either the state legislature would pass a resolution confirming this, or the Supreme Court would rule in favor of this, it would then become active in the city of Newark. It is enforced by the health department, which is something we've already talked to the health department about. They're the ones enforcing it in Heath. So I just would ask that the committee would consider this trigger legislation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know the law director's happy to answer any questions on it, but it's something that I feel strongly we need to enact here in the city to protect our citizens.
Law Director, is there anything else you wanted to add?
So, the timeline for this is that there were several municipalities that passed legislation to regulate what was being sold in vapes in their city. In response to that, the state legislature passed a law stating that cities could not regulate tobacco sales. In response to that, the city of Columbus, along with Heath, Reynoldsburg, and multiple other jurisdictions, sued the state of Ohio. That was in front of the Franklin County Common Pleas Court. That judge actually made a declaratory judgment stating that the section passed by the General Assembly saying that cities could not regulate the tobacco sales in their jurisdiction was unconstitutional and a violation of the home rule. That is now being reviewed by the 10th District Court of Appeals. the legislation that you have in front of you is mimicking Heath's, regulations that is now. So those cities that had an ordinance before, filed the lawsuit, they are now allowed to enforce their regulation, which is causing migration, from cities that are enforcing it to cities like ours that don't have it. Now, we will not be able to enforce this if and until, the courts decide we can, or the General Assembly, I guess, changes their mind based on the court case. So, and that's what's in there, that this will not be enforced until a court of competent jurisdiction says that it can be enforced, or the General Assembly acts to allow cities to do it. Yep.
I appreciate the work on the front end of this, doing this, so if it does pass, or if it is resolved, then this goes into effect.
Right, we can begin enforcement.
I appreciate that, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So from a timing standpoint, let's say we do have some of these, as you mentioned, a couple in the city already. Let's say the court cases get settled, we get guidance on that. What's the impact of these businesses? I mean, if they don't seek that approval or are unable to get it, you're getting close, essentially, that's the mentality probably at this point.
That's what happened in Heath. They didn't choose to stop selling their non-FDA products. And so the health department enforced the rule. They ended up closing, 2 weeks where they can do it legally. At this
Well, there's a federal regulation that says that you can't sell non-FDA approved vape cartridges. And so that's just not being followed. So, all of that the health department is doing is making sure that they're following the law. So similar to skill gaming, when people don't want to play by the rules, instead of changing, they move. So, until we can enforce this though, will that stop them from doing work? I don't know, but at least.
Mr. Costa.
I understand there are 2 in the city of Newark now.
Oh,
two that we definitely know of, but I think we're both under the understanding from the health department, there are multiple others.
Is there anything to stop from having more and more at this point?
No. I mean, no. Yeah, zoning's the only other.
Yeah, you don't mind. So is this involving nicotine only?
it's involving ends, which are, electronic nicotine delivery system products and other ends products. So anything, if you look at the definitions of the ordinance, that can be used to vape, to inhale through the vaping process.
So the name itself contains nicotine, so is this?
Some of them do.
nicotine Or is it something?
Some of them do. But that's why they say in other ends products. So it is in the definition, nicotine delivery system.
So I guess my question is, I apologize about being too dense
You're
here,
fine.
but ENDS is electronic nicotine dispensing system.
Yes,
When you say other ends, that makes me believe, or leads me to believe that we're talking about nicotine only. Because of ends, nicotine, the end in ends is nicotine. So are we regulating other things that are vaped? Or is it just nicotine?
e-liquids are a type of end products and generally referred to liquid nicotine and nicotine containing e-liquids. Liquids do not contain nicotine or other material made or derived from tobacco that are intended or reasonably expected to be used with or for the human consumption of a tobacco product may be components of parts and therefore subject to FDA's tobacco control.
Okay, so
So,
put that more side.
Yes,
yes, like it's nicotine or products to be used like nicotine in the same sort of way.
Could be like a synthetic product.
Okay, so are we talking about, synthetic, it went right out of my head, because it's exactly
Yeah,
what I'm
so
thinking.
it is
Delta
nicotine.
8 is what I'm talking about, that supplement.
Well, I think there are Delta 8 cartridges. I don't shop Ben's products. So anything that is not approved by the FDA cannot be sold in that form. However, what we're finding is that there are a lot of things being sold in that farm that are safety hazards, risk to a lot of issues, and they're inhaling material that we don't know what it is because it's not approved.
Sure, and this is not just being sold at vape stores, it's being sold at.
There's drive-throughs,
Every
so
gas
any place
station
that
and
sells
convenience
end
store,
product would be subject.
So, for instance, I talked to a couple owners of local convenience stores and asked them, would this affect you? It would not affect them because they only sell FDA approved product. They don't put things in stores that are not non-FDA approved.
So a question I have is, are there major players in this space that have products that aren't FDA? That's the source. Again, I also don't shop.
Yeah,
I don't either. So are there major manufacturers of this that are not seeking the FDA approval? Or I'm just trying to understand that, or what's the source of these products essentially?
I don't know what the source of the products are. I don't know the manufacturers that are involved. But obviously,
That's something we can, talk to the health department to find out. They obviously the ones that would be enforcing this and have all the detail on it. But again, hearing the fact in December when I got a call that two were moving into town because they were asking if those were Catholic legislation, and I said, no, from what I can find, no, we don't. And confirmed that with the law director, and he said, well, they're moving into town. And then one moving across the street, which to me feels like a major zoning issue, but we don't have anything in zoning to dictate that. So speaking with the health department, this was the first best thing to implement to protect citizens.
It definitely sounds like we need to revisit the zoning.
I agree.
And prohibit it. Not at all. Do that. I'm also have been concerned in the past and still are about the Delta products. Delta 8 is a derivative, but it's a synthetic, like you said, and there's Delta 9, Delta 10, and sushi outlaw 8, 9, and 10 to come up with Delta 11, it's like that.
and that's what's being advertised in their windows. That's the big draw.
That's true, but it's also very dangerous.
It is, absolutely. I'm not disagreeing. with you.
Marketed to children.
Absolutely.
And
That's what I'm saying.
prohibited to sell to children.
That's these vape stores' big thing is you see Delta 9 on everything in their store. Yeah.
So this will not include then
If it's anything in a cartridge for a vape, including Delta
only
9,
that one.
it would. Yes.
I don't shop Delta products either.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to contact the health department and kind of see if we can get some type of product list.
We could include that, that would be a plus.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Absolutely forward in that. If we, do you have, I know you're talking about lawyers and judicial systems and court systems, and you can't get anything accurate and predictive, but you gonna have a sense of when the timeline is, and if we pass this today, when would this be enforceable? I don't know, a problem with passing a piece of legislation that's not enforceable.
I get that. I understand this. It would only become enforceable when we would either be given the green lights by the courts or the General Assembly would change the mind. So I have had conversations with people like Representative Miller about what we're trying to do, that we're not trying to regulate FDA products that are sold in the store. We are only trying to make sure that they're following the law, like we did with school gaming products. He was interested in that conversation. He wants me to send him what I have about our regulation of other industries like school gaming and marijuana, and just making sure that they are selling products they are legally allowed to sell and nothing else.
I've talked to State Senator Schaefer about the city. Senate side.
What do you anticipate that the impact of us passing this, if we were to send this forward and send it to council and it passes? What are you anticipating the impact being, and does the health department have any have any opinion as to how this may impact our businesses today in the near future before the legislation becomes enforceable?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, we've not had.
Is there a benefit of passing this, even though it's not enforceable?
Yeah, so I think two things. One, we haven't had distinct discussions with the health department about that. I personally think that if we have it on our books as a trigger legislation, that will assist property owners and realtors in our area that know that that is a potential, that they would not be then putting someone's business in jeopardy by bringing them into town. It also, I think, would put these stores on notice that if something happens, it triggers active in our municipality. And they then have their own problems. And they then either have to become compliant or leave.
Just to echo that, again, like I said earlier, I appreciate your work on this front end of this. For me personally, I'd much rather have something on the books waiting. So that if it goes through the legal system and it's passed, then we can, it's already in place.
One other thing, there are some other private citizens who have connections to the legislature who are also working on some additional items that are working with law director and myself to tie this into the same ends legislation to hope to get the General Assembly to fix it.
Yeah, I want to thank you for doing this. This is so important. As far as a product list, I don't know that that's necessary because you're setting a boundary. And that's all we need. That this is approved, this is not. Forget about it. And so, and it would be very helpful to our neighborhoods, very helpful to existing businesses. And I think, again, thank you for that.
I'll entertain a motion on this.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bryan, seconded by Mr. Hauser. Are there any other questions or discussion from the committee or the audience? Seeing none, all those passing, voting to pass this on the full council vote by saying aye.
Aye.
No, the same. That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That closes the safety committee, and next up is capital improvements.
First one was, and I'd like to call this capital improvement committee meeting to order, please. President, council members, Rath, Harvey, Ely, Buda, myself. First up on the agenda is to consider resolution number 25-08, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation. Mr. Director Williams, how are you today?
I'm done. Thank you. Hey, up on Orange Hill, there is a ham operator's building. If you've been up there, it's on the right-hand side, it's green, it's in total disrepair. One of the initiatives we have this year is to bring that building kind of back together, reskin it, put a new roof on it, give the ham operators a decent place to work out of. They're the last line of defense that we have when all the other communications go down. And I think the last time we really used them was during the Dutch era. So I'm asking for $35,000 for building improvements.
And then, so this, the way I have this in front of me, it's, one resolution, but two sections.
Yes.
Should we do that all?
That's that one. Move on.
But it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same piece of legislation.
Start from of this. Are there any questions or discussions for Director Roach? Motion by Labutus.
Second.
Second by Ralph. All those in favor of passing this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The appropriation under section 2 is for the Nature Works grant. The proposal is to install a pickleball court on the city-owned property at Newark Station.
Motion by Labutus.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, send this on full council.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And with that, this concludes the capital improvements committee. Thank you.
Make some line.
So these are the.